Burton Cummings story too, but Bob Dylan told me never to name drop, so. I won't. This is a poem. My grandparents, who lived in Vancouver and Point Grey, and I went over there in the summers, a huge influence in my life. More so than my parents, actually, but maybe that's true for many of us. It's a poem called Tears of Things. My grandfather spoke Latin at the breakfast table over his all-bran and 2 stewed prunes, read Parry Match in the Loo, referred to his many grandchildren as little cannon fodder. What else do I remember of my childhood summers? Raspberry canes, sweet peas the length of the garden fence, the English oaks my grandfather had planted from the acorns he brought with him when he emigrated after the First World War. Learning to sew painstakingly, play tennis desperately at Jericho Beach, the air sauced with heat, the fierce walk home uphill all the way to Trimble and 13th. Shelling peas on the back porch, the satisfying ping as each pea bounced off the sides of the stainless steel bowl. The potatoes my grandfather planted in the boulevard, the humbugs he kept in a jar on the mantel above the rows of Penguin Classics with their intelligent orange spines. How I desired beyond all reason those unreachable sweets, and how my grandfather, possessed of the ability to read my mind, offered me one every evening after supper. African violets on the windowsill, the scent of rose geraniums, the rock cakes my grandmother made using bacon fat before it was considered unhealthy, and tomato sandwiches on thin slices of the solid white bread my grandfather baked every Saturday. Salt, freshly ground pepper, a smear of butter, mayonnaise we couldn't afford at home. We took tea on the juggernaut, what my grandfather called the well-braced garden bench he built himself in the basement, where the shelves were lined with my grandmother's preserves. Peaches like wedges of wet sunlight, lettuce medlars and quince, gibbous moons of pears. Everything my grandfather built was well-braced, the measure of a good carpenter, I observed. In winter, when I visited, I was awakened each day by the sound of my grandfather shoveling coal in the basement to feed the furnace, a sound I found comforting because I could count on it. Wading through spring snow on the UBC endowment lands in search of his sapling oaks, home through the woods above 16th Avenue, where he would stop, ignoring my impatience, to whisper, "Hark at the bird." You cherish them, then they are gone. What more can be said? My grandfather's dying words were, "Sunt lacrimae rerum." My grandmother's, "What is going to become of me?" Of course, sunt lacrimae rerum is translated as, he translated as, "All things are weeping," but it's tears are of things, or there are many different translations. I don't speak Latin because my fellow students at Gordon Head Junior High told me it was a dead language, and I believed them. I'd be better at the dictionary game if I could speak Latin. Oh, I forgot to put this on again. Oh, well, I won't be 15 minutes. Exculpatory Lilies, the title of my book, comes from a New Yorker cartoon. A woman's opening a bouquet of flowers and says to her husband, "Oh, it's been weeks since you bought me exculpatory lilies." And I thought, somehow I like the combination of an abstract word with a concrete word. So, page 17. Good Friday, the day they delivered that sad bouquet, was the day our cat ran out on the road and failed to look both ways. I'd stashed the candy eggs under the sink in their pink raffia nest, safe amongst the household poisons where the kids had been warned not to go. On Easter Sunday before first light, I stole outside to hide the loot, the family of bunnies in gold foil, the high-quality chocolate you insisted on buying. Nothing's too good for my girls. The lilies, smacking of humility, devotion, had been for me, your way of saying, "Sorry, I can stop. I will lose the needle and spoon today." But I was finished. I was through. Said sorry had been your default setting since the day we vowed I do. I think now I was cruel. The cat darted out, hit the car, staggered back as far as our front gate. For a second I thought she might have been stunned, nothing more, though the dribble of blood at the corners of her mouth was a small grief with a life of its own. I buried her at the bottom of the garden where I had tossed your exculpatory lilies, and where I picture them still. Each new day above ground is a hard miracle, you wrote. I hung on every miraculous breath you took as I stood outside your door at night, dying to hear you breathe. In the end, it wasn't me you turned to, but God. Wasn't love meant to be more pure than faith, more sacred and enduring? These days I lean heavy into the wind, and the wind's blowing hard. This poem I want to dedicate to Sunny, who's here from Cortez Island, and I did a course over at Hollyhock last year, and we went to meet Anne Mortefi, and she has chickens, and Molly was a chicken that was living in Anne's house because she was kind of, I guess, what's the word? The other chickens didn't like her. And
Ostracized.
So the workshop became completely obsessed with Molly. She became our mascot without even being there, but just knowing about her. And I think she's okay now. There are only 4 chickens left, and she's way better.
She
All
is.
her feathers, and they've turned brown again from white. But it's a poem I wrote as a class exercise. I made myself do it because I give people writing exercises. I want to inhabit your white feathery body, Molly, with my own mind resident inside, trying to figure out how to make the other birds love me, the ones locked inside their pens, those lousy, bockety, die-hard hens. I forgive them for what they know of the larger world. For what can they know of the larger world beyond the strut and run of their hungering? I was born on the outside looking in. I am not too afraid of the world to love it. Hope may not always be a thing with feathers, but it can be, I tell you, a thing with claws. I am chicken. Hear me roar.
Thank you.
And this one's for Rose, who's in the audience, and for anybody else who has lost a child after being so long. Social distancing at the crematorium in Armstrong. This is where I last see you, in a cardboard casket friendly to the environment, which would have made you laugh, filled with stargazer lilies, the kind your father brought to the hospital bed the day you came flailing into this world, the kind you carried in your wedding bouquet less than a decade ago. We lined the path to the beach with the lilies you couldn't hold, and the whole forest smelled fecund, like earth after rain. Nearly everyone in the wedding party was high on cocaine. Your divorce became final the day you overdosed on fentanyl in Vernon. It took me weeks to alter your wedding gown. Each time you came to try it on, you had grown thinner, more far away. I took in the seams and said nothing, for fear of losing you, for good, the way words can so easily become wounds. You were the only patient in the intensive care unit who didn't have COVID, and you hadn't been vaccinated. A bed was made for you in the hospital's recovery room where you wouldn't risk infection. The doctor who guided me into a darker room to discuss what you would like done with your organs left the door ajar. The door had a dint near the handle as if someone had tried to kick it in. If God is in the details, where was God that day? A sign at the crematorium in Armstrong says, practice social distancing. You have gone beyond distance. Death has made a permanent stranger of your face. There is no time this time to alter the clothes I've dressed you in. Love comes and goes the way the wind goes. The world cuts you open, and you don't close. You don't close. You don't close. And finally, my favorite poem in exculpatory release is called Hunger. When I go to the river with my trouble and sit under the big trees, I see my girl again. Her dress is the color of soft butter. Her hunger tastes of whiskey and rain. Behind us is darkness, and darkness lies ahead. The worst kind of pain is to miss someone you've never known, and worse, never will. The emptiest days are loveliest. Only people with desires can be fooled, and I have none. Thank you.